Thanks for joining us today. My name is Tommy Johnson. I'm with the Portland Regional Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to today's special event, Innovation with Bernard Hidier. The Portland Regional Chamber has partnered with our friends from ACE, the Association of Consulting Expertise, to bring you a three-part event series focused on the topic of innovation. Each month since March, we've delivered a unique presentation that is focused on the topic of business innovation. The goal is to help reshape the mindset of how we must continually evolve our habits through the spectrum of innovation. Now, today's topic, Innovation for Everyone, is presented by Bernard Hidier, the founder of Karrgreen France, which creates innovative solutions for low-carbon mobility, as well as Ostrea Capital, an independent consulting firm at the intersection of renewable energy and sustainable food production. This topic and its relevance are clearly evident as we have over 60 people registered today, which brings our total attendance to over 200 participants throughout the course of this series. Now, like all Chamber virtual events, today's presentation is free and will be recorded and made available for free replay on the Chamber's website and YouTube page. To keep up to date on all the Chamber's news and events, visit our website, portlandregion.com, check out our events page, and sign up for our weekly email newsletter while you're there. At this point, I'd like to introduce Terry Johnson, the volunteer president of the nonprofit member organization ACE, the Association of Consulting Expertise, our partner for this three-part series. Terry is the owner and president of Practical Decisions, a business professional organization committed to providing practical professional support for businesses, investors, and management. Terry brings over 30 years of experience in senior leadership positions and has successfully led teams to drive high levels of effectiveness in core business processes and organizational development. Please join me in welcoming Terry Johnson.
Good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen and share a little bit of background about ACE. Thank you, Tommy. So I wanted to give everyone a little bit of an overview. ACE is the Association of Consulting Expertise, a professional organization dedicated to the professional development of our members and helping them promote their businesses. We also help them build their networks and have opportunities to collaborate on economic or community development projects. For more information about ACE, you can go to www.consultexpertise.com. ACE provides monthly programs throughout the year. Our upcoming programs include a conversation with MTI about the main Entrepreneurial Resource Corps in June. This is a new program at MTI. In July, we'll have our yearly ethics program. This year, it will be focused on business and corporate social responsibility. And in September, we'll be starting a three-part series on workforce issues around attraction, retention, and culture. We're very excited to be partnering with the Portland Regional Chamber of Commerce to present this three-part series on innovation. Today's presentation is the final program in that series, and as Tommy mentioned, our first presentation was in March, where ACE member Matthew Okuda led us through a discussion about adopting a mindset of improvement. Last month, Renee Kelly from UMaine told us about innovation engineering and how using that systems thinking approach and process, we can improve the way that we work. Finally, in this program, we will hear the story of innovation and how that actually happened. As Tommy mentioned, Bernard Hidier is the co-founder of Karrgreen France and the founder of Ostrea Capital. After a career in commodity trading and finance, Bernard started his entrepreneurial path with the development of decentralized circular economy models at the nexus of food production and energy sectors for decarbonized mobility. He holds a management certificate from Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership, a master's in finance from the London Business School, and an MBA from ESCP Europe, Paris. And also, Bernard is a pitch finalist at this year's Maine Center for Entrepreneurs Top Gun Showcase, which is next Thursday, the 26th at USM. And now, an innovation story from Bernard Hidier.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the introduction, Tommy, and thank you to ACE and the Regional Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity to share my experience. I'm going to be actually sharing slides to make my presentation. So hold on one second. I'm going to try to see whether it works. All right. So yes, I'm very glad to be given this opportunity. I'm a new Mainer. I came to Maine 4 years ago, and I will get to that personal part of my story later on in the presentation. I don't consider myself as an innovator. And when I was asked by ACE to look into it, it questioned a lot of things. And I had actually to do some introspection and trying to find exactly why ACE had decided to give me this opportunity. So let's move on, and let's start maybe just basically with what innovation means. This is a basic definition of innovation, the action or process of innovating a new method, idea, or product. Fine. So, but what's interesting is over time, actually, the principle of innovation has changed over time. Basically, up to the 16th century, novators were actually very suspicious people. They were actually breaking from the general order and from the traditional power structure. And they were almost considered as heretics and undermining actually the social system. Only in the 16th century, we started seeing actually a positive side to the definition of innovation. So interestingly enough, in the 19th century, Gabriel Tarde, who was a sociologist, a French sociologist, started to see it as actually something that was bringing social benefits. So here we're talking about innovation as a way to make society better and interaction better. So there's a social purpose, a common purpose. And through my experience and the presentation I'm going to make, you will see actually how this definition has an imprint on what type of innovation I've been involved in so far. Only in the 20th century, we started looking at innovation as something that's linked to a market. So think about any pitch deck. If you have to do a pitch competition, and as Terry mentioned, I'm going to have to do that next week for one of our businesses. You look at what market answer you'll be able to provide a solution to. You need to find the issues, and you need to find the market size and the addressable market. Okay, so that's a notion that comes in the 20th century. Then you can consider that having moved from the what I was describing in the 19th century, which was kind of social, common purpose, evolution of the society, to this more narrow approach of addressing a market, you can, or in my opinion, think that there's maybe a loss of quality of thought, and we're moving into a product and an intellectual commodity. Anyway, now we're talking about in the 20th century about innovation as a very loaded term that is basically almost difficult to handle for a lot of people, because with innovation, you think that you need to have either a training or scientific background that is needed to be able to get to the graal of innovation. This is absolutely not my experience. I have no scientific background, and I've been involved in innovation directly or indirectly. So yeah, let's get back to this question. Why on earth did ACE think of me for their virtual innovation conversation series? That's actually a very valid question. Well, it's apparently because of my involvement in both Karrgreen, which is a company that I've been involved now for 12 years with in Europe, in France, and my recent involvement with a company that I'm launching here in Maine, particularly next week, with the big steps coming up next week. And it's called Finsulate, and it deals with anti-fouling for boats and all kinds of structures in the water, but in a very environmentally friendly way. So I guess that's the reason why they took the phone and rang me. So now let's jump across the Atlantic. Okay, let's cross the ocean. Welcome to Brittany. Okay, so here is Brittany. We're in France. This is the west of France I'm coming from. This is the west of France. I'm not actually native exactly of Brittany, but more of a southern part of Brittany. We're gonna get there later. As you can see, Brittany is has a lot of similarities with Maine. Having moved, and I've been moved 4 years ago, what struck me was the sense of community on both sides of the Atlantic in those regions. The connection to the sea, obviously. Brittany is a peninsula, and a lot of the economy relies on both tourism, it's a vacation land too, but also on fishery and aquaculture. It has a strong identity. This is the flag you can see. It has a language. It has the same oysters, and differently from Maine, where Maine has 90% of forestry cover, Brittany economy relies heavily on farming, and it's positive farming, and it has a good image. It's very good food. It's beautiful paysage, beautiful landscapes. Sorry, yet it's a farming that developed very strongly and intensively from World War II in order to actually feed the growth of the baby boom and the reconstruction of France. And we'll get to there, and we'll get to the consequence of that. It's a beautiful place, again, fantastic opening on the sea, and a very vibrant maritime economy. So one more link with Maine, and obviously vacation land and a beautiful opportunity to enjoy tourism. So now let's go back to a terrible year, which is 2009. On the north coast of Brittany, an incident happened and a horse dies. His owner is rescued just in time by passerby. Why is that? Who's the culprit? Hydrogen sulfide. This is algae blooms. Algae blooms coming from what I was describing before. Basically, the overflow of nutrients, and particularly nitrates and phosphorus, potash, to help actually grow all this intensive farming in the center of Brittany. And we're talking about poultry, pork meat, eggs, and milk, has resulted in a huge algae bloom all around the peninsula of Brittany. And just to give you the size, like the peninsula of Brittany is roughly the size of the state of Maine, and this means it's 1/3 or 1/4 or 1/3 of between 1/4 and 1/3 of the size of France. And obviously, it's the consequences of this phenomenon are horrendous. It's the image of the region is collapsing. The whole flow of products from Brittany to the rest of France and to the rest of Europe and exports is affected. The whole maritime economy, whether it's seafood or tourism, is completely blown away by the phenomenon that just appears overnight. So now let's go back 2 years before that. And I'm very happy to see actually someone here attending the meeting that was with me in that adventure. 2 years before, I was involved in sustainable forestry. We were investing in forests in France and UK, and at some point also in Sweden. And our idea was to be able to valorize locally the low quality wood that is the byproduct of any forestry production. Basically, you tend to produce wood for construction, but as a consequence of the management of the stands, you have to take out like small woods during the production phase before you get to maturity on the main wood you can harvest for construction. The result of that is you have a resource that has a value locally if you're able to co-invest locally with collectivities, towns, but also investors or entrepreneurs looking to get like a renewable energy produced from a resource that's just around the corner and not coming from Ukraine or not coming from the Gulf, and having a consequence of any geopolitical event, being able actually to trace it and make it sustainable. This is where we started. So 2 years before this algae bloom, we were building the first of our district heating system with basically a wood boiler, a very efficient wood boiler, where you're able to extract 98% of the calorific power energy content of the wood. Just to give you a scale, if you put the wood in a fireplace, your efficiency is 38% or 37%. So very efficient, and being able to deliver this hot water, 90 degrees Celsius. So it's not steam, it's water. So very easily manageable, and being able to give heat to 2 schools, an aquatic center, so basically swimming pool, but also industrial users. So we were able to take that. So 2 years before, we had already moved into creating a system where we were giving majority shareholding to local people, collectivities, and entrepreneurs, and helping them use the resource they had just around the corner. Locally owned is beautiful. So now let's get back to that period. We've created this nice little tool of decarbonization and energy independence. And this algae bloom just appeared and challenged the whole economy system. A bit like today, the Ukraine war is challenging the whole economy system all over Europe, but that's a region being affected by that. And now I'm going to talk to you about the importance of a cafe in a village in France. So this is 2 pictures of my own little town, further south in Brittany. This is how it looks at the bottom today. Still 2 cafes fronting the church plaza, and that's where everything happens. People sit down, they talk, they hear everybody's history. Oh, there's gossiping, no question. But we also talk about, the tradition is also to talk about what's going on, what are the problems, and hearing actually another view from other people. And this is how it looked on the top in the 20s. And at that time, there were even more cafes, because actually every widow from the World War I was probably running a table in our kitchen and with few bottles, and people would go from cafe to cafe. This culture is very important in what my type of innovation has been. When we finished completing the first project with this wood boiler and saw the consequences of the algae bloom in Brittany, we decided with my partners, but also with the local collectivity and with the entrepreneurs that had decided to co-invest with us. And again, these local people had the majority, 60% of the shares. We decided to go one step further. We said, we need to fix the problem. There's too much nitrate, too much phosphorus being imported in Brittany. And we have a lot of organic waste and resulting from the food production. And this organic waste is spread back on fields. And the consequence of that, it's obviously the nitrogen runoffs and the phosphorus runoffs. How can we fix it? Well, we need to fix it at the source. So we decided to move on and decided to create something that was inaugurated, as you can see on the top right side of your screen, by the President of France, François Hollande at the time, on the 4th of November 2016. And he took this opportunity actually to announce the passing into law of the decisions of the Paris Agreement that had been taken in December the previous year, in 2015. So now let's have a look. So what you've just seen is a facility that works since 2016, is processing 60,000 tons of organic waste, no energy crops, from 53 types of organic matters. And we're talking about food production, farmers waste, water treatment waste, etc. Today, we're producing 4 types of energies and 2 fertilizers. As a consequence, we are able to win off the whole region about its dependence on fossil fuel-based fertilizers, but also fossil fuel-based fuel for their mobility. The whole system of collection of waste is powered by the gas we produce, but also we selling the gas through our stations. And this is, again, the fact that at some point people took a coffee together at a cafe on a plaza facing a church and just talked about their problems. And these people were shareholders, majority shareholders of a decentralized system of production. They were farmers, they were food processors, they were entrepreneurs, and they were investors, and investors with what was not even known at the time as impact investors, but people who wanted to do something good for their local economy. And now I'm going to show you from this production center, we went to distribution center, and we're aiming to open 150 of them in France in the next 3 years.
Très heureux aujourd'hui d'inaugurer le premier hub énergétique de Karrgreen avec le développement d'une station locale Karrgreen Plermel. Karrgreen, c'est d'abord l'association d'un certain nombre d'acteurs. D'abord, on a été chercher la performance technique, la compétence, l'association entre des acteurs comme Prodeval, qui est l'acteur numéro 1 de l'épuration du biogaz pour faire du biométhane, mais aussi avec une très bonne connaissance de la compression. Et puis, comme on n'oppose absolument pas les énergies, cette électricité verte qui est produite sur ces hubs énergétiques permet, technologiquement parlant, de gagner en coût économique, énergétique, mais surtout aussi de rester sur ce qu'on appelle des tarifs jaunes et non plus des tarifs verts sur ce type d'infrastructure. Et c'est très important puisque comme on veut démocratiser cette énergie dans les territoires, il faut pouvoir y accéder et la délivrer au plus proche de ses utilisateurs. L'originalité de Karrgreen, c'est aussi de créer cette fameuse condition pour les acteurs locaux, de réduire l'empreinte carbone, de donner les conditions au territoire pour répondre à cette fameuse énergie décarbonée et à lutter contre ce changement climatique. L'exemple que vous avez ici est un véritable mixte énergétique avec une technologie Smart Grid. Là, vous avez l'implantation d'une station qui n'appartient pas à Karrgreen. Karrgreen Développement est actionnaire, mais qui appartient aux acteurs locaux, c'est-à-dire des transporteurs, des autocaristes, des très jolies entreprises de l'agroalimentaire. Ici, vous avez par exemple la grosse coopérative Eureden qui a investi, le groupe Jean Floc, qui s'engage. Alors, on ne parle plus d'acteurs, mais ce qu'on appelle des acteurs, les acteurs de la terre. Et vous voyez, ces gens qui s'engagent, qui prennent l'initiative de participer à ce capital de cette station, les dividendes ne seront pas renversés qu'à un seul actionnaire, mais sera partagé entre eux.
L'originalité du modèle développé pour Karrgreen, c'est un modèle qui fédère les acteurs de territoire, qui ensemble détiennent 70% des infrastructures, donc des stations, des centres d'excellence, et pour lesquels on s'engage vis-à-vis des acteurs de territoire à ce que toujours 70% de la valeur ajoutée reste sur le territoire en question et participe à l'accroissement de richesse du territoire en question. Et à côté des actionnaires de territoire, on met en place des financements bancaires et des financements citoyens pour accompagner le tour de table financier, permettre au projet de démarrer dans de bonnes conditions, avec une bonne visibilité pour une durabilité et un projet long terme vertueux pour le territoire en question.
All right. So we've gone initially to give 70% of shareholding in all these stations to local providers, local people. So basically, the idea is to give them a tool to be able to decarbonize their economy. When you're a transporter, a little transporter, like with 5 trucks, 10 trucks, you don't have a sustainability officer. You don't have a deep sustainability department. Yet you've got customers, big supermarket, big groups. We will put pressure to you to go into scope 3 decarbonization. How will you do that? Well, with the Karrgreen model, we actually set up like local companies, whether it's for production centers or for distribution centers, and 70% of the capital is given to the people who have the problem with the waste, so we call them the people who provide the resource. And on the other side, with people we will use actually the decarbonized energy that we produce. And today we've moved from the biogas, from the anaerobic digestion from leisure, to now being able to do green hydrogen, still going through the methane and the CH4, the methane molecule. And we're moving into different types of electricities, electricity, green electricity, etc. But the model is to break the mold and not having super concentration of capital, but opening it and making it transparent. And so making it transparent after having gone from towns, collectivities to suddenly entrepreneurs co-investing and owning the stuff and knowing how the price will be set up 5 years from now and not being like in the dark like they are with fossil fuels. We always had the dream to involve the individuals, the consumer citizens. So this is like a presentation of view we had in 2018 after having discovered what blockchain could do. And that we are implementing now.
Today I'm too hot. I'm suffocating. I feel sick. But recently I felt a change. Humans have finally understood they need to act. For my good and their own. From now on, citizens will want to trust the products they consume. They'll want to protect their health and make the right choices to reduce carbon emissions. Consumers have understood the need to use mainly energy that is renewable, bio-friendly, priced fairly and produced from local resources, like the sun, the wind, and terrestrial and marine biomass. Producers agree and are committing to integrated production that creates local wealth. To achieve this, they use a secure, transparent digital currency known as clean coins. This guarantees product origin while stimulating the low-carbon economy. A platform puts consumers, producers, and distributors in contact. This platform manages certificates of origin and ensures product traceability while distributing clean coin fairly. This circular economy pools the resources provided by each stakeholder intelligently. Here, distributors become green ambassadors. In mobility, for example, they offer consumers certified carbon-neutral mobility. With this system, consumers collect clean coins and transform their purchases into ethical, virtuous action. By emitting less carbon into the atmosphere, consumers are transformed into responsible citizens. By making their purchases more meaningful, they help build a sustainable circular economy. They become activists for the planet or green agents, setting the best possible example, acting for their own and others' well-being while taking care of their health. With this evolution, a major awakening of humanity, everyone will win. Now I can smile and imagine a better future. Thanks to you.
So the clean coin exists today. It's taken a different identity. It's called Karrgreen. And again, the principle we've adopted is to reward people for good behavior. Not tax, not carbon tax, not carbon certificates, just a coin that within community we're able to exchange and prove via traceable blockchain traceability, the capacity of reducing CO2 at the origin of the emission. So all these circular systems, all these ESG, all these SDG systems, and digital coin systems. Is this innovative? Right? This is innovative? I'm not so sure. Getting back to my village, the next village where my mother was born. This is the village where my mother was born. I'm going to introduce you to my grandmother. My grandfather was a baker, and my grandmother, Alice Boucheron, started doing blockchain in the 1930s. Here is actually how she was distributing the bread around in the 1930s, and she became actually one of the first women to get her driving license at the time. This is my mother, near the car. So, but she was able to do something that was also securing transactions with her clients when she was going in the farms all over the countryside in France. And there was this exchange validated by a very smart system and distributed ledger technology. Programmable, I'm not sure about it. Secure, definitely. Anonymous, no, it was pseudonymous. Unanimous, yeah, everybody agreed on the system. Timestamp, almost. Immutable, sure. Distributed, yes, it was. Only it was made of chestnut branches, split lengthwise. Hello, this is what is called les coches. So basically, that was a system where when my grandmother was going to the countryside, there was a system where one branch was split with one farm and marked with the farm. And every time they were meeting, they would put the two branches together. And for the number of bread they would take from her, there would be actually a marking on that. And at the end of the month, when they would come to the village to settle the credit, the two pieces would be reunited and the ledger would demonstrate exactly what was the money due to my grandmother and grandfather. So let's go now to my grandfather. Meet Henri Boucheron, my grandfather, the baker. So my grandfather was reusing heat energy that would otherwise be disposed or simply released into the atmosphere. Today it's called waste heat recovery or heat integration. Okay, but what was happening is that every Sunday in that village, people, as you can see on the top left, would come, would put their clothes for the Sunday. And they would arrive early in the morning, coming from all the farms around to attend the many masses during the day. So there was one at 9, one at 11, and the latest one at 3. But what they would bring when they were coming was actually clay pots with a stew ready to be cooked, slow cooked, because my grandpa would have shut down the wood fire in his oven by around 7 or 7:30 a.m. But the heat was still there. It was not to be wasted. So everyone would come to the back room of the bakery and put their pots there to be stewed slowly all day long and collect them at the end of the day. And in this action, basically there was also a collective will to use every resource that was available. And also an opportunity to gossip, to exchange information, to discover the problems of one another and find solutions. So, wait a minute. Are we saying that all what we're talking about, this innovation stuff, that's been here all along? Right under our nose? Like the sea urchin at the bottom of the sea? Meet Rick Brewer. Finsulate. Let's talk about biomimicry quickly.
This man has a dream. Rick Breuer wants to prevent thousands of tons of toxic chemicals going into the world's oceans each year. From pleasure craft, cruise liners, tankers and container ships. And he thinks he knows just how it can be done. By using a kind of fiber carpet for the boats. Not to make their cabins more comfortable, but to provide a protective coating over their hulls. The invention by Dutch materials scientist Rick Breuer sounds bizarre, but it's revolutionary. Because his fiber wrap prevents so-called biofouling, the colonization of ships' hulls by marine organisms. Over months and years, algae, barnacles and mussels form ever denser layers on ships' hulls. But Breuer's special carpet prevents this, and it uses no chemicals whatsoever.
In principe is alles wat je in het water...
Marine organisms grow on all surfaces that are underwater, whether it's a ship, an oil platform, or the foundations of a wind turbine. To prevent this, special paints are usually applied. The coatings are poisonous, they contain biocides, and they slowly dissolve, releasing their toxins into the water. The poisons kill all life on the ship's hull and are distributed throughout the marine ecosystem. Copper is also washed out of the paints. The heavy metal is around 100 times more toxic for fish and crustaceans than it is for us humans. It's a creeping catastrophe. But Rick Breuer's anti-fouling wrap can prevent it. Arriving at his invention wasn't that easy, though. It was out at sea that the Dutchman suddenly had the decisive idea. A keen diver, Rick Breuer knew that marine organisms clung to the shells of crabs and mussels. Their smooth surfaces seemed to make this possible. Sea urchins, on the other hand, were free of algae and the like. Their spiky surfaces seemed to repel potential settlers. So Breuer tried to develop a material that would mimic those spiky surfaces found in nature. He decided to use nylon fibers as spines, arranged on a substrate like small needles. But how could his idea be realized? The materials scientist found the right ingredients and methods in various European laboratories. The first requirement is a thin layer of adhesive, completely free of polluting chemicals, to use as the substrate for anchoring the fibers. But how could it be done? By resorting to a trick that researchers call electrostatic flocking. A high voltage is applied to a container with the fibers above the substrate. This creates an electric field. It flings the fibers towards the substrate, and they land vertically, like spears, in the adhesive film. As soon as the glue has set hard, the anti-fouling wrap is ready for use. The big advantage of the flocking technique is that it's been practiced for years. This made it easy for me to create different variations in the lab regarding fiber length, thickness, and density. I could experiment a lot and then put the best version relatively easily into commercial production. Of course, it had to be guaranteed that in rough seas, at speeds of 30 knots or more, the fibers wouldn't fall out of the anti-fouling wrap and pollute the oceans as microplastics. That's why the blade moves across the material thousands of times over. The wrap mustn't lose even a single fiber. The adhesive that fixes the wrap onto the hull was also a challenge. It now lasts for a guaranteed 5 years, far longer than any anti-fouling paint. At last it's ready, the self-adhesive fiber wrap that prevents biofouling without any need for toxic chemicals. Breuer calls it Finsulate.
Finsulate is toepasbaar voor jachten.
Finsulate is primarily intended for yachts. Boat owners want environmentally friendly products that are non-toxic. But it's also suitable for large cargo ships and ferries. The material could even result in fuel savings of up to 40%. That's a lot of money. Because the growth on the gigantic ship hulls gets thicker and heavier by the day and worsens the vessel's hydrodynamic performance. This uses up extra fuel to the tune of 10 to 20 billion euros annually worldwide. Rick Breuer patented his anti-fouling wrap very early on. This gave him and his one-man company the necessary credibility from his backers. So it's only a matter of time before large ships will be relying on Finsulate. Breuer already has customers on every continent.
Wat mij het meest motiveert eigenlijk in...
I really enjoy the fact that a solution to a problem in society can be found through creativity. And that's my biggest motivation. And over years of evolution, nature has already solved all kinds of things that we humans can learn from.
Heel veel dingen opgelost heeft, waar we als mens nog een hoop van kunnen leren.
Ships out at sea and in harbours, but also oil rigs, wind turbines and other solid structures in the oceans can all benefit from Finsulate. All of it made possible by the sea urchin principle. It's a worldwide and seemingly inexhaustible market for Rick Breuer's anti-fouling wrap.
All right. So how did I meet Rick and got into Finsulate adventure here in the US and based in Maine, because that's where we decided to go? Well, the same old system of connection that I've described before. It was not around a cafe or in a cafe terrace or at a cafe terrace or having a coffee. It was actually participating to a tender from harbor in the south of Brittany, La Turballe, which last year decided to identify the technologies of the 21st century to make it more sustainable, more prepared, and help all its members and users to face the new challenges as we face them here in the Gulf of Maine. So what we did as Karrgreen, we were offering green hydrogen from water treatment sludge that we're able to produce, and that's because the ferries in Brittany have a mandate from the local region to move to at least hybrid hydrogen propulsion in at the horizon of 2023, 2024. And I looked at other technology and found Rick. And having moved to Maine 4 years ago, and being so concerned about making sure we have the energy, we use the energy that we're able to produce ourselves and make us like autonomous, I realized that his technology was actually totally fitting my purpose, because actually the less expensive form of energy is the one you don't use. And with Finsulate and the capacity of substituting the 100 million liters, really 100 million liters of anti-fouling paints that are used every year, we not only reduce the cost of production of these paints that are fossil-based, but because of the extra life length of the wrap on boats, we're also able to actually register fuel efficiency, and as described in the video, actually a positive benefit in terms of reduction of CO2. So this is where I am. I've been asked by ACE to present something about innovation. I've been linked to innovation. But innovation in my case is either getting back to where I'm coming from. Well, as I described my grandparents, I talked about my mother's parents, but I could talk about my father's parents. And they were also involved in local ways of having a local credit union where people would put their money and help each other when someone had to build a barn. Well, this is what we do with Karrgreen. We give 70% of the capital to the local people, so they own their tool to decarbonization. It's also like looking exactly the same when, for Finsulate, I'm talking to people on the waterfront here. You have to sit, you have to listen, and you have to hear the stories, because you discover what their need is. So I'm going to now get very personal. And I'm going to actually stop sharing and talk to you about why I'm here and why I came 4 years ago. So as a family, we were faced with a situation. We were living in London at that time, and we had two wonderful octogenarians here facing health issues, and that's my wife's parents. So we decided as a family project to move to Maine and to build a 3-generation house where we could be all together and making sure that they were okay. This is actually quite interesting. For the last few years, there's a lot of research being published about the wonderful benefits of combining a retirement home with a kindergarten. Yeah, it's incredible. You see, like interaction between elderly people and young kids or teenagers, or is actually valuable. Oh, but hold on one second. That's how I was raised on the west coast of France. Every farming community in the west coast of France was on that base. The grandparents, the parents, and the children all together, interacting together, making sure that everything was okay. So basically, I'm getting back to the initial question. Why on earth Ace asked me to talk about innovation? I'm not innovating. I'm just taking what's in me, what results from my background, my own experience, the values I was given, and just trying to put them to good use. And that's how I would conclude. I think anyone can actually should not be scared about the term of innovation, shouldn't think that it's related to a degree, having done such and such college education, or being part of whatever group. We have actually all something, a history, a story to tell that can actually be either innovative in the sense of making our life better, but also by talking to each other and talking to other people and identifying their problems. Maybe we've got the key to unlock value for them, to make their life better. And that's my innovation. So I don't know whether that's what Ace wanted to hear today, but this is my story. And I'm very happy to have been able to share it with you. Thank you so much.
Bernard, thank you for an excellent presentation. We do have one question for you, if you don't mind answering.
Sure.
Discussing all the innovation stories that you've shared, they all seem to have a very similar community aspect, except
Yes.
Finsulate was shown as a one-man invention. Maybe we're missing something here, but what was the community aspect of Finsulate?
No, so the Finsulate is an organic, I would say, evolution of having done the Karrgreen. And I agree, Finsulate is a different story. But Finsulate, as described in the video, was developed by Rick. And Rick has been focusing mainly on the, I would say, recreational craft. Today, the way, and we're going to announce it next week, we are coming to Maine, putting our headquarters in Maine for all the North American market. And the idea here is we decided to focus on the aquaculture, on waterfront, and fishery sectors, because we want to do actually a cooperative way of doing things. We think we have with Finsulate an instrument to unlock value with these people, and the optic of going for the waterfront is actually resulting from my experience of saying that as we're able to bring a strong value proposition to people who are challenged by the changes that are happening in the Gulf of Maine, especially, we are actually doing exactly the same thing that I've been doing with Karrgreen in Europe and in Brittany and all over France. My buddies in my farming communities, they still send their milk every day or every other day, and they don't know how much they're going to be paid at the end of they're going to be paid. It takes probably 2 weeks for them to know how much they're going to be paid per liter, but they still have to pay. They don't know how much they're going to pay for fuel. They don't know how much they're going to have to pay for fertilizers, and they still have to repay the bank loans, etc. And there's a similarity of constraint and stress as with the people on the waterfront here. And that's what struck me when I came here. And that's why Rick's solution now is going to be put to good use. And there's a lot of good news happening actually at the moment with helping our waterfront community to become more resilient, because the same way as I was describing for the dairy farmers, the lobsterman doesn't know where the fishing ground is going to be this year compared to last year, whether it's moved away, whether it's going to use more fuel, whether it's going to find a sternman to help him fish or help her fish. So all these, very valuable, traditional, but also very dynamic sectors, which are actually a key to feed the planet. face huge challenges, and bringing solutions that make them more resilient and more in control of their destiny is key. And that's where I see similarity. And that's why we decided for Finsulate here to go first with these professional and passionate people, because there you can impact positively their bottom line, financial bottom line, also the bottom of their boat, but also make sure or give a chance that the next generation will still be able to carry on the same work. And that's the same on both sides between Karrgreen and Finsulate.
Thank you for answering that for us. I don't see that we have any other questions. So unless we get any that come through the chat function right now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. But please know that we're very, very thankful for Bernard for the presentation today. It was an excellent and very interesting presentation, I thought. But that a reminder of today's presentation has been recorded. It will be available for replay on the Chamber's website and YouTube page. A copy of today's presentation, any details and other resources will also be included in the post-event email that you'll receive after the presentation. A quick plug for all of the upcoming Chamber events. Please be sure to check the Chamber website for all of our great events. Even better, sign up for our weekly event newsletter when you're there. Thank you again to our partners at ACE for the final presentation of our three-part series on innovation, and to each of you attending today and throughout this year. We look forward to seeing you at our next Chamber event. In the meantime, have a wonderful day, get outside, and enjoy your weekend. Oh, Bernard's got one more thing.
Can I take the opportunity to mention that today at the Roux Institute, there will be the first France main innovation event. And this is a big first, and I'm very proud to have given a small hand to the organization of this event. There will be a lot of mainers involved, and there will be a pitch competition between actually 4 companies involved in the biotech and healthcare sectors, 2 mainers, 2 French. And I'm privileged to be on the jury, and I try to be nice with these people. And so, but it's a great bridge that's been built between the 2 sides of the Atlantic, and we should look forward to more. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you for plugging that. And yes, I encourage anybody who can participate, please do so. So again, Bernard, thank you for a great presentation today. Thank you to our friends at ACE, and everyone else. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.